The bar lights in Lower Manhattan glowed like cold blue fire, bouncing off polished marble counters and rows of expensive whiskey bottles. It was the kind of place where bankers boasted about bonuses and models pretended not to listen, far from where Elena Hartman ever imagined she'd end up on a freezing Thursday night. 6 months pregnant, wearing a borrowed coat that didn't quite fit around her belly, she kept her head low as she delivered a tray of drinks to a table of laughing executives. She didn't see him at first. She only heard the laugh, sharp, loud, rehearsed. Adrian Cole's laugh. The man who once vowed to love her forever now used that same voice to tear apart everything she had left. When she finally turned, her breath caught. Adrian stood near the center of the bar, wrapped in designer black, holding a glass of top-shelf bourbon like he owned the place. And on his arm was her Sierra Veil, the rising runway model whose face was currently plastered on half the billboards in Soho. Sierra's smile was sweet poison. Adrian's smirk was worse. Well, he said loudly, ensuring every table heard. Looks like even pregnant charity cases need tips, huh? A few patrons glanced over. Others straight up stared. Elena froze, cheeks burning. Her hands trembled, and one of the glasses on her tray clinked against another. Sierra giggled. She used to be your wife? Oh. Wow. Elena swallowed the shame rising in her throat. Adrian, please don't do this here. But he stepped closer, voice booming through the bar. Why not? You always wanted attention. Laughter rippled around her. Her vision blurred. For a moment she feared she might collapse, but then she felt something. A presence. At the far end of the bar, a tall man in a tailored charcoal coat slowly rose from his seat. His eyes were dark, unreadable, and fixed entirely on Adrian. Patrons whispered as he approached, recognizing him instantly. Marco Santori. A name that made the bravest men go silent. And he was walking straight toward them. Elena didn't remember leaving the bar. One moment she was staring at Marco's silhouette slicing through the crowd, and the next she was outside in the biting New York wind, her breath fogging as she tried to steady herself against a streetlight. The city glowed around her towering glass buildings, neon reflections in puddles, but all she felt was the weight of humiliation pressing down on her chest. Her phone buzzed. She ignored it at first, thinking it was another spam call. But when it buzzed again, she checked. We need to talk. Urgent. It was her manager, Lila. Not good. Elena forced her shaky legs to move toward the back entrance of the bar. The alley smelled of rain and cigarette smoke. Lila was waiting just inside the door, arms crossed, face pale. Elena, we need to discuss what just happened. Elena swallowed hard. I didn't start anything. Adrian, I know, Lila said, lowering her voice. But customers complained. They think you caused a scene. A scene, Elena whispered. He humiliated me in front of everyone. Lila's eyes softened but only slightly. Sweetheart, this isn't about fairness. The bar's image matters. And we can't have viral drama attached to our staff. Elena blinked. Viral? Lila hesitated before showing her phone. There it was. A clip of Adrian shouting at her, Sierra smirking, and Elena shrinking in shame, already climbing past 30,000 views in under 30 minutes. Comments poured in. She shouldn't be working if she's that unstable. Drama queen playing victim. Poor guy, dodged a bullet. Elena felt the world tilt. Lila sighed. I'm so sorry, honey, but we have to suspend you. Maybe just for a week, maybe longer. Management doesn't want trouble. Suspended. With rent due in 4 days. With a baby coming in less than 3 months? Her vision blurred with silent tears as she nodded, unable to speak. She stepped back into the cold, pressing one hand to her stomach. Hang in there, little one, she whispered. Mommy's trying. But fate wasn't done with her yet. As she approached the subway entrance, her phone buzzed again, this time with a notification she wished she hadn't opened. Sierra Vale posted a story. A boomerang of her laughing at the bar. Caption. Some people don't know their place number, drama mooch. The comments were vicious. Is that the ex-wife? She looks rough. Adrian traded up. Elena's knees threatened to buckle. She clutched her belly and stumbled into the subway station, sinking onto a metal bench. A businessman glanced at her swollen stomach, then looked away as if she were invisible. Invisible. Disposable. A joke. Her breath trembled as she wiped her face. She had been poor before, yes, but never like this. Never humiliated, jobless, and alone in the middle of a city that didn't care whether she survived the night. The train roared into the station, wind whipping her hair across her face. She stood, gripping the pole as she boarded, letting her forehead rest against the cold glass window. But a few seats away, someone else watched her quietly. A man in a dark coat, broad shoulders, jaw sharp as carved stone. A familiar presence. Marco Santori had followed her, not to frighten her, but because he had seen enough. And what he planned to do next would shake Adrian Cole's world to its core. But Elena had no idea that her life was about to change. The subway rattled through the dark tunnels, its flickering lights casting harsh stripes across Elena's pale face. She tried to steady her breathing, one hand instinctively covering her belly as if shielding her unborn daughter from the cruel world above. The humiliating scene at the bar replayed in her mind like a broken record. Adrian's smirk, Sierra's laugh, the pitying stares, and worst of all, the knowledge that her life had just been broadcast to thousands of strangers who would judge her without ever knowing her story. She squeezed her eyes shut, but when she opened them again, she noticed him. Marco. He sat 2 rows down, posture straight, eyes fixed on her with a mix of worry and something darker, anger. Protective, simmering anger. The same look he used to give boys at the group home when they teased her for being too quiet, too gentle, too hopeful. She didn't want him to see her like this. Elena quickly looked away, pretending to study the outdated subway map above the doors. But when the train screeched to a halt at the next station, Marco stood, walked straight over, and lowered himself into the seat beside her. "Elena," he murmured, voice low and steady, carrying the quiet authority of a man who rarely needed to raise his tone to be heard. "You okay?" She let out a breath that felt too heavy for her small frame. "I'm fine." "You're not." His certainty cracked her composure more than any insult Adrian had thrown at her. Elena kept her gaze on the window, watching dark tunnels blur by. "Marco, please, I don't want to drag you into this." "You're not dragging me anywhere," he said, jaw tightening. "I watched that man humiliate you. I watched him record it. And I watched you walk out alone, shaking." He paused. "That's not happening again." Her throat tightened. "Marco, you can't fix this with threats." "I wasn't planning on threats," he said calmly. "That would be too easy." She turned toward him then. Under the dim train lights, his face looked carved from granite, strong, unyielding, older than the boy she once shared cereal boxes and worn-out blankets with. But behind that hard shell was the same boy who'd shared his coat with her during winter nights, who'd stood between her and anyone who dared raise their voice at her. He wasn't her blood, but he was her family, the only real family she had left. "Elena," he said softly, "I know you don't want my help because of what I do. But you're forgetting something." He tapped her hand gently. "You're my sister. That means your problems are mine." Her eyes brimmed, vision blurring. "I don't want my child growing up around danger." His expression softened. "And she won't, because what I do now isn't like it used to be." A beat. "I'm not the man people whisper about anymore." Elena frowned. "People still whisper." Marco cracked a faint smile. "Yeah, but now it's mostly because I know too many CEOs and too many secrets." Despite everything, a small laugh escaped her. Then his tone shifted. "I did some digging on Adrian." She froze. Marco's eyes locked onto hers, calm, patient, but burning with something fierce beneath the surface. "You need to know this," he said. "Your ex-husband is hiding things, dangerous things. And tonight, he crossed a line he'll regret." Elena's pulse quickened. "Marco, what did you find?" Marco exhaled slowly. "Let's just say Adrian Cole is about to learn who he messed with. It's everyone." The train hissed to a stop at the Atlantic Avenue station, and Elena stepped onto the platform with Marco close behind her. The cold draft rolling through the underground tunnel felt sharper now, slicing through her thin coat. She wrapped her arms around herself, partly for warmth, partly because the weight of Marco's words was too much to carry bare. They started walking toward the stairs, but Elena slowed, exhaustion tugging at her bones. Pregnancy had made every simple movement feel heavier, every worry twice as loud. "Marco," she said softly, "you said Adrian's hiding things. What does that mean?" He hesitated. That alone frightened her. Marco Santori didn't hesitate, not in business, not in danger, not even when she once asked if peanut butter expired. The fact that he paused now meant whatever he'd learned was worse than she imagined. "Elena," he began carefully, "you remember how your marriage started falling apart before Sierra?" Her heartbeat stumbled. Yes. Truth was, she remembered everything too clearly. The first silent dinners. The first nights Adrian worked late. The first time he blamed her for his failures. And then the day he accused her of cheating completely out of nowhere. As they climbed the subway stairs, Elena's mind drifted back to that night 2 years ago. She had come home early from her shift at the cafe. She was excited because Adrian had promised they'd finally talk about trying for a baby. She had bought groceries, made his favorite pasta, even lit a candle to make their tiny kitchen feel less cramped. But Adrian walked in angry, wildly angry. His shirt wrinkled, his breath smelling of bourbon and mint gum masking something she later realized was perfume. He accused her of being with another man because she took too long at the grocery store. He yelled, slammed cabinets, broke a glass. And when she asked why he was acting like this, he said something that haunted her. "I know what you did, Elena. Someone told me everything." She cried, she begged, she swore she'd done nothing. But he never said who someone was. That night began the unraveling. Back on the street now, Elena stopped walking. "Marco, what did Adrian think I did? Who told him something?" Marco exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck as if choosing the right words. "That accusation wasn't random," he said. "Adrian didn't come up with it on his own. Someone fed him lies, someone he trusted." Elena's chest tightened. "Who?" "Sierra." The name fell like ice water down her spine. Marco continued, voice low. "She's been in his orbit way longer than you knew. She wanted him long before the divorce. She played on his insecurities, made him believe you were an obstacle, and she told him that you were unfaithful." Elena felt physically sick. "She lied," Elena whispered. "She tore apart my marriage with a lie." "She did," Marco said. "But that's not the only thing." He turned toward her, his expression darkening. "Sierra didn't just want Adrian. She needed him." "For what?" Elena breathed. Marco's jaw set like stone. "To cover up a crime she committed." And Adrian walked right into her trap. Elena staggered back, gripping the wall behind her. "Marco," she said, voice trembling, "what kind of crime?" He looked at her with a gravity she had never seen before. "Elena, Sierra Vale ruined your marriage to save herself. And Adrian helped her without even knowing." Elena's heart pounded as the world tilted. What kind of secret could destroy 2 lives so completely? The next morning, Elena woke to the harsh buzz of her cracked phone vibrating across the chipped nightstand. For one brief second, she forgot the world had seen her at her lowest. But the moment she unlocked her screen, reality punched her in the chest. Her name was trending. Not her full name, just "the pregnant bar girl." A title cold enough to slice through bone. Clips of the confrontation flooded every social platform. Edits, slow-motion captions, voiceovers mocking her expression as Adrian waved his bourbon glass in her face. People judged, joked, dissected her posture, her clothes, even the way her breath hitched. She pressed a hand to her stomach, whispering, "I'm sorry, you have to feel this." A knock sounded at the door. Her landlord, Mr. Higgins, stood outside, frowning like he'd rehearsed it in the mirror. "Elena, look, I don't want to be the bad guy," he began, shifting his weight. But the building owner saw that video. "He's worried about attention." Elena blinked. "Attention? Drama," he corrected. "We can't risk police coming around or reporters showing up. The owner wants a peaceful place." "But I've never caused trouble," she said, voice breaking. "That may be true, but," he sighed heavily, "I'm giving you 2 weeks. After that, I need the room cleared." Her legs nearly buckled. "You're evicting a pregnant woman?" His face tightened with guilt. "Elena, I'm sorry, truly, but orders are orders." He walked away before she could respond. She closed the door slowly, hands trembling, breath unsteady. Humiliation, shame, now homelessness. One after another, life delivered blows with surgical precision. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "Congratulations, sweetheart. 1 million views. SV. Sierra." Mocking her. Gloating. As if Elena's suffering were simply marketing content for her next modeling contract. A sob tore free before she could swallow it. She sank onto the edge of her bed, burying her face in her palms. Every instinct screamed to disappear, to curl into herself and vanish. But the tiny flutter in her belly reminded her she couldn't. She wasn't alone anymore. Just then, the door to her apartment swung open, not with force, but with the unmistakable certainty of someone who owned the air they walked through. Marco. His coat was dusted with winter frost, and the cold clung to him like a warning. But when he saw her, the tears, the trembling hands, the fear, his expression hardened into ice. "Elena," he said softly, stepping closer, kneeling in front of her like she was made of something fragile. "Don't cry. Tell me what happened. If you Devrid." She handed him her phone with shaking fingers. He watched the bar video, jaw tightening with every second. When it ended, he exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that signaled a storm brewing behind his eyes. "Elena," he murmured, "this wasn't humiliation." She looked at him confused. "Marco, how can you say that? The whole internet." "This was an attack," he said, "calculated, coordinated. Sierra posted the clip herself. She wanted this to go viral." "Why?" Elena whispered. Marco's gaze sharpened. "Because Sierra's hiding something, and she needed you destroyed before anyone could believe you." The room went still. Before Elena could ask what he meant, Marco stood, pulling his phone from his pocket. "We're done letting them control the narrative," he said. "And Adrian Cole is about to learn there are consequences." His thumb hovered over a contact. Elena's pulse quickened. "Marco, who are you calling?" He met her gaze. "Someone who owes me a favor. Someone who can end Adrian's career in a single phone call." Elena watched Marco's thumb hover over his phone screen, the name on the display glowing like something radioactive. She didn't recognize it, but the tension in Marco's jaw made it clear the person behind that contact was powerful. Someone who didn't get summoned over personal drama. Someone whose involvement meant consequences that reached far beyond a viral video. Her pulse thudded painfully. "Marco, stop, please. I don't want anyone hurt because of me." He looked at her, eyes narrowing slightly, but not in anger, more like disbelief. "Elena, you're not asking for revenge, you're asking for peace. Those are different things." She shook her head. "Peace doesn't come from destroying someone." Marco exhaled slowly, slipping his phone back into his coat. "All right. I won't make the call, yet." His pause lingered in the air, heavy with meaning. Then he scanned the cramped apartment, the peeling paint, the second-hand furniture, the draft sneaking through the window frame. His expression darkened again. "You can't stay here another night," he said firmly. "I have nowhere else to go," she whispered. "Yes, you do," he replied. "I found a place for you. Safe, warm, quiet. No one will bother you." She tensed. "Marco, if it's connected to your world." "It's not," he cut in. "It's one of my legitimate properties, a condo in Midtown. Top floor. Secure building, private entrance." He softened his tone. "Elena, this isn't charity, it's protection. Let me help you." Her throat tightened. "Why now?" she whispered. "Why come back after all these years?" Marco's eyes softened with something rare vulnerability. "Because the one person who ever treated me like a brother needed me," he murmured. "And I wasn't there when your marriage started falling apart. I should have been. They should be." Before Elena could respond, her phone buzzed again so violently it startled her. Another notification. No, dozens of them. Her stomach tightened as she opened one. A new video. Not just the bar footage. Someone had dug deeper. A clip from her old wedding day. Adrian smiling, dipping her into a kiss juxtaposed with his cruel rant from last night. The caption read, "From vows to venom. The rise and fall of Adrian Cole's marriage." Millions of views. Her humiliation had officially become entertainment. Elena's breath hitched. "I can't. Marco, I can't do this. I don't want to be a joke. I don't want my baby to grow up knowing her mother was a meme." Marco stepped closer, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You won't be," he said. "I'm going to fix this." "But you can't fix the internet." "No," he agreed, "but I can change the story." Before she could ask what that meant, another knock sounded at the door. Not Mr. Higgins. Not a neighbor. A tall man in a charcoal suit stood there, holding a folder embossed with gold initials. "Miss Hartman?" he asked. Elena blinked. "Yes? I'm Daniel Reeves," he said. "I represent Cross and Bellman, your former design school's scholarship board. We saw the videos." He hesitated sympathetically. "We'd like to offer you a meeting. There may be an opportunity for you." Elena froze. A lifeline. Out of nowhere, Daniel handed her the folder. "We think your story is being told wrong, and Mr. Cross, our director, wants to hear your side." Marco arched a brow. Elena opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside was a single card. "Talent deserves a second chance. Julian Cross." Elena's breath caught. For the first time in months, maybe years, hope flickered. But Marco's expression shifted, shadowed. "Elena," he murmured, "you need to be careful. Things are moving fast, too fast." She looked up, confused. Then Marco added quietly, "Because when powerful people become interested in you, it's never just kindness." Elena sat on the edge of her bed, the scholarship folder open in her trembling hands. The embossed gold letters, the weight of the cardstock, the sincerity in Daniel Reeves's voice, it all felt surreal, like a door she thought had been sealed forever had suddenly unlatched itself. She traced the signature at the bottom of the card. Julian Cross. The name tugged at a faint memory. A quiet classmate, a visiting instructor, someone who once complimented her sketches. She couldn't quite place him, but she remembered the warmth she felt at the time. A warmth she hadn't felt in years. But before she could dwell on it, Marco shut the apartment door behind Daniel, returning with a tight expression. "Elena," he said calmly, "you need to sit down." She blinked. "I'm already sitting." "Good, because what I'm about to tell you is worse than what Sierra did to your marriage." "Thanks." Her breath caught. "Marco, what could be worse than that?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked across the room and pulled a chair in front of her, lowering himself so they were eye level, something he rarely did. Marco wasn't a man who knelt or stooped. If he bent down for someone, it meant the truth weighed more than his pride. "You asked me what Sierra's hiding," he said quietly. "It's time you knew." Elena nodded, bracing herself. Marco took a slow breath. "A year before your divorce, Sierra was under investigation." Her brows furrowed. "For what?" "For fraud," he said. "High-level fraud. Impersonating a charity representative and taking donor money." She was smart, used fake documents, a temporary phone, a synthetic identity, but the investigators were getting close. Elena stared at him, feeling the ground tilt. "But what does that have to do with Adrian?" Marco leaned back slightly. When Sierra realized she was going to be caught, she panicked. She needed someone with a clean record to pin things on, someone she could manipulate, someone insecure enough to believe anything she said. Her blood ran cold. "Marco, no, she didn't." "She did," he said firmly. "She convinced Adrian that you were secretly meeting someone behind his back. She showed him fake messages, photoshopped emails. She planted the idea that you were hiding money. She didn't just ruin your marriage, she used you as a potential scapegoat in case the fraud investigation reached her." Elena's vision blurred. "She tried to frame me?" she whispered. Marco nodded once. "When you were accused of cheating, that was the beginning. She wanted to destabilize your life, make you look suspicious, erratic, untrustworthy. If the investigators ever came knocking, she planned to shift the blame onto you and Adrian. Two people with no power, no resources, no way to defend themselves." Tears welled in Elena's eyes, not just from pain, but from the sheer horror of what could have happened. "She almost destroyed my life," she whispered. Marco's jaw tightened. "Elena, she didn't almost, she did. And Adrian helped her, not knowing he was being used." Elena pressed her palms to her face, shaking. "Why me? Why us?" Marco's voice softened. "Because you were kind, because you trusted people, because you never imagined someone could be that cruel." Silence pressed into the room, thick and suffocating. Then Marco added, "But the investigators didn't drop the case. They're still searching for the missing money. And Sierra knows it. That's why she's clinging to fame now. It's her shield." Elena lowered her hands slowly, swallowing her rising fear. "Marco," she whispered, "what happens when people like Sierra feel threatened?" He met her gaze, eyes dark. "They lash out. And Sierra Vale hasn't even begun yet." Elena hadn't slept. All night, she lay awake, replaying every word Marco had said. Sierra's fraud, the investigators still circling, the horrifying realization that she had been nothing more than a disposable pawn in someone else's scheme. For months, she'd wondered what she had done wrong, what flaw in her character had pushed Adrian away. Now she knew the truth. It was never her. It was never her fault. It was a trap. By morning, she felt hollow, as if someone had scooped out everything soft inside her and left only the sharp edges behind. Her eviction notice sat crumpled on the nightstand. Sierra's mocking text illuminated her cracked phone. And somewhere in Midtown, Julian Cross, a man she barely remembered, was requesting a meeting that could change everything. But change was a double-edged blade. It always came with a price. Marco insisted on driving her to the meeting. His black Mercedes S-Class waited outside the apartment building, engine humming quietly against the winter air. Elena hesitated before getting in. "Marco, I don't want to look like someone who's getting chauffeured around by..." She lowered her voice. "By you-know-who." He smirked. "Relax. My license is clean these days." Then, more seriously, "But you're not stepping into Midtown alone. Not with your face trending and Sierra trying to bury you. It's not safe." Elena didn't argue. She didn't have the strength. The drive into Manhattan was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the heater and the soft thud of tires rolling across the Brooklyn Bridge. Elena stared out at the skyline, glimmering high-rises, the winter haze settling over the East River, the distant outline of the Empire State Building cutting through the gray. New York had always looked so big, so full of possibility. Now it looked like a battlefield. Marco dropped her off in front of a sleek glass tower on Park Avenue. A doorman opened the brass door, bowing politely as she stepped inside. The lobby was marble and gold trim, soft jazz playing overhead. Elena felt wildly out of place in her thrift store coat, her worn boots, her backpack with a broken zipper. A receptionist approached. "Miss Hartman, Mr. Cross is expecting you. Right this way." A private elevator whisked her up to the 21st floor Cross and Bellman's design headquarters. The doors opened into a sunlit office draped in minimalist luxury. White oak floors, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the Manhattan skyline, sketches pinned tastefully on the walls. And there he was, Julian Cross. Tall, polished, effortlessly confident, the kind of man who commanded a room without raising his voice. He wore a tailored charcoal suit and held an iPad, but he set it down the moment he saw her. His expression softened. "Elena Hartman," he said, walking toward her. "I wasn't sure you'd come." She swallowed. "I wasn't sure either." He gestured to a chair. "Sit, please. You look exhausted." She sat hesitantly, clutching her bag like a shield. Julian studied her for a moment, respectfully, not pityingly. "I saw the videos," he said, "but I also saw your old portfolio, the designs you submitted back when you were my classmate." Her head snapped up. "You remember me?" "Of course," he said. "You were the most promising designer in that cohort. You had talent, vision, heart." Elena fought the sting behind her eyes. Julian continued, "I want to offer you something. A temporary position, a chance to redesign several pieces for our spring line. Paid, flexible, and protected from the press." Elena froze. "Protected?" She opened her mouth to respond, but Julian added, "There's something else, Elena. Something you don't know." She stiffened. Julian's gaze intensified. "Sierra Vale worked with us once. And she left behind a secret one that could blow this entire city apart." For a moment, Elena forgot how to breathe. Sierra, Cross, and Bellman. A secret big enough to shake Manhattan. She sat frozen in Julian Cross's minimalist office, sunlight spilling across the white oak floors, catching faint dust motes that drifted between them. The world outside looked deceptively calm, traffic gliding up Park Avenue, yellow cabs honking distantly, but inside her chest, something thundered. What kind of secret?" Elena finally managed. Julian didn't answer immediately. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled thoughtfully, studying her in a way that made her feel seen but not exposed. "Before you panic," he said gently, "understand this. I'm not asking you for anything. I'm offering you protection and a chance to rebuild your career. The rest we'll handle step by step." Elena swallowed hard. "But Sierra, she's everywhere. Her name is on half the magazines in Midtown. How did she cross paths with your company?" Julian's jaw tensed ever so slightly. "A few years ago, Sierra signed a short-term modeling contract with us before she was famous. Back then, she was ambitious and talented, but unpredictable. She missed fittings. She lied about travel schedules. She caused tension with our senior designers." He paused. "And one day, she vanished. No explanation. No forwarding information. No completion of the contract she'd signed. She disappeared before the final photo shoot and left us with unpaid invoices and a tarnished collaboration. Elena blinked. She just ran? Julian nodded. At the time, we didn't know why. But now, his brows knit together. Now, with everything Marco uncovered about the fraud investigation, it all makes sense. Elena felt her pulse spike. You think she ran because she was being investigated? I don't think, he said quietly. I know. Thanks for watching. Julian turned to a folder on his desk, sliding it toward her. Inside were printouts, emails, schedules, old press drafts, and a digital receipt for a trip Sierra had claimed was for work, but hadn't been filed by any agency or brand. She told us she was traveling for a charity event, Julian said, but the charity never existed. And after she disappeared, we found out the booking had been paid for under a false business name. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. This wasn't petty drama. This wasn't jealousy or fame or vindictiveness. This was criminal. Julian, she whispered. If this comes out, she'll destroy anyone who stands in her way. He nodded grimly. Exactly. And that's why you need protection. You, Elena, are the one person Sierra can't afford to let speak. She needs you powerless, voiceless, isolated. Her stomach tightened. Which is exactly what she did. Julian leaned forward, his voice steady and measured, professional, but deeply sincere. You're not powerless anymore, not if you join us. He gestured toward the Manhattan skyline outside. Cross and Bellman has resources, legal protection, media connections. We can keep you and your baby safe. And we can give you work that uses your talent, not your pain. For the first time, Elena wasn't sure whether the heat rising behind her eyes was fear or hope. But, why me? She whispered. Julian's expression softened. Because you're good, Elena. You always were. And because I refuse to watch another gifted designer get crushed by the industry's loudest bullies. Before she could respond, the office door swung open. Marco stood there tense, eyes blazing as if he'd sprinted up 21 floors. Elena, he said sharply, we need to leave. Julian stood. Is something wrong? Marco's gaze cut to him, then back to Elena. Sierra Vale just posted something, he said, and you're trending again. Elena's breath caught. This time, Marco added, she's coming after your baby. Elena froze as Marco's words sank into the quiet, glass-walled office. She's coming after your baby. Her heart lurched violently, a protective instinct flaring through her body. For a split second, she couldn't even form words. Then she forced herself to stand, gripping the arm of the chair as if the ground had tilted beneath her. Marco, what does that mean? What did she post? Marco didn't answer immediately. Instead, he handed her his phone. Her breath caught. Sierra had uploaded a picture, one clearly snapped by someone in the bar that night. Elena stood in the background, profile visible, one hand resting protectively over her pregnant stomach. Sierra had edited the photo to make Elena appear disheveled, unstable. But the caption, some women trap men with babies, number golden diggers, number dodged a bullet, 1 million comments, hundreds of thousands of shares. And the algorithm, merciless as always, was pushing it even further. Some comments were cruel, others were violent. Many doubted her baby was even Adrian's. Some mocked her poverty. Some said she looked too emotional to be a fit mother. Elena's vision blurred. Julian stepped closer, voice low but urgent. This is defamation. We can act on this legally. But Elena barely heard him. She was staring at the screen, her pulse roaring in her ears. My baby, she whispered. Marco clenched his jaw. This wasn't meant to embarrass you. Sierra's sending a message. She's telling you to stay silent. She's telling you she can ruin you anytime she wants. Julian's expression chilled. Not anymore. I'll have our legal team file a removal notice and harassment complaint immediately. Marco turned to him. And our team will handle the digital side. Her bots, her fake engagement, everything she's using. Elena shook her head. But why escalate? Why take it this far? I'm nobody. I don't have anything she wants. Marco exchanged a look with Julian, one that said she deserves the truth. Julian spoke first. You have something Sierra is afraid of. Elena blinked. What? Marco's voice dropped. A motive. Elena stared at them, confused. Marco continued. Sierra's fraud investigation is heating back up. The feds have reopened the file. Someone tipped them off anonymously. If they start questioning people from her past, including Adrian, they might uncover everything she did. He leaned forward. And the easiest way for her to protect herself is to destroy the credibility of anyone who might expose her. Elena's stomach tightened. So she's trying to make me look unstable, untrustworthy. Exactly, Julian said. So if the investigation touches your old neighborhood, your marriage, even your old finances, people will shrug and say, she's dramatic, she lies. Ivory. Elena felt cold, dizzy, like the world was tilting. Julian stepped toward her gently. Elena, this job offer wasn't pity, it was preparation. If you work with us, we can give you visibility and PR support. That makes you harder to silence. Marco added, you'll have a platform. And protection, both. Elena drew a shaky breath. I didn't ask for any of this. I never wanted to fight anyone. I just wanted to raise my baby in peace. Marco softened, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. And you will. But peace doesn't come by letting people walk all over you. Sometimes, peace comes from having the power to defend yourself. Before she could respond, Julian's assistant rushed into the office, breathless. Mr. Cross Sierra just went live. Julian cursed under his breath. What now? The assistant swallowed. She says she's telling the real truth about Elena. And there are more than 100,000 people watching already. Elena's heart stopped. Marco straightened, voice like steel. That's it, she crossed the last line. Elena, we're shutting her down. The elevator ride down from Cross and Bellman felt endless, claustrophobic, as if the walls were tightening with every floor the trio descended. Elena stood between Marco and Julian, her breathing shallow, one hand protectively over her belly. Somewhere in Midtown, Sierra's voice was pouring out through thousands of phones, poisoning the narrative even further. When they reached the street, Julian's driver pulled up immediately. Marco opened the door for Elena and slid in beside her, his posture rigid, jaw clenched so tightly the muscle twitched at the edge. Julian sat across from them, already pulling up Sierra's live stream on his tablet. Brace yourself, he warned softly. Elena nodded, though nothing could have prepared her for what she saw. Sierra sat in a velvet chair, hair styled in soft Hollywood waves, makeup immaculate even for a live stream. She looked like a woman giving a press conference, rather than fueling online chaos. Behind her hung a PR-perfect backdrop, soft lighting, white orchids, a luxury candle burning out of frame. Her voice, when she spoke, was syrupy sweet. I'm going live because women like me deserve to speak our truth, Sierra began. For months, Adrian and I have been harassed by his unstable ex-wife. She tried to trap him with a pregnancy, and now she's lying to ruin my reputation. Elena flinched. Her heart twisted painfully. Julian's face darkened. Defamation. She's burying herself. Marco's expression, however, was a storm barely contained. Sierra continued. I tried to help her. I tried to be kind, but she keeps spreading rumors about me. Fraud, manipulation, even crime. It's disgusting. She needs professional help. Then Sierra leaned closer to the camera. And I worry about the baby. A child shouldn't be raised by someone so mentally unstable. Elena gasped audibly. Her entire body recoiled as if struck. Julian muted the video immediately. Enough. But Marco didn't blink. His entire posture had turned lethal, his eyes expressionless in a way Elena had only seen once years ago, when someone threatened him at the group home. Marco, Elena whispered. He didn't respond. He just lifted his phone. I'm calling someone, he said quietly. No, Elena pleaded, grabbing his wrist. Please, no, not like this. Marco finally looked at her, really looked, and for a moment, the hardness of his expression cracked. Elena, she said, you're unfit. She put your child at risk. This isn't gossip anymore. This is war. Elena shook her head, tears gathering. If you escalate this, it'll make me look guilty, like I'm hiding behind you, like she's right. The words hung between them, twisting the air. Julian broke the silence. Elena's right. We need strategy, not retaliation. If Sierra's live stream was reckless, and it was, we use that. Let her destroy herself. Marco's jaw shifted. Explain. Julian tapped the screen. She's making medical accusations about a pregnant woman without evidence. She's claiming harassment without proof. She's implying criminal behavior. All of this is actionable. And she posted it publicly to millions. Our legal team will tear this apart. To Debley. But the most important thing, Julian added, looking at Elena with surprising gentleness, is that Sierra thinks you're alone. She thinks you're powerless. She doesn't realize you have witnesses, documentation, and people willing to testify. Elena breathed shakily. What do we do now? Julian exchanged a meaningful glance with Marco. We change the narrative, he said. Carefully, strategically, legally. Marco nodded reluctantly, sliding his phone back into his coat. But his eyes stayed dark. Fine, he said. We'll play it your way. He paused, voice dropping lower. But if Sierra goes after Elena again, there will be no live stream, no lawsuit. I'll handle it permanently. The ride back to Marco's penthouse was silent, tense, like the calm before a storm no one had fully measured yet. Elena pressed her forehead lightly against the car window, watching raindrops stretch into long silver trails across the glass. Her reflection stared back at her, tired eyes, trembling lips. A woman pushed past every emotional limit she thought she had. Marco sat beside her, unmoving, a portrait carved from anger and restraint. Julian rode in the front seat, already on a call with his legal team. This live stream changes everything, Julian said quietly into his phone. Yes. Every statement she made was defamatory. Pull the video, archive it, prepare the countersuit. End quote. He hung up and glanced back at Elena with reassurance she desperately needed. We're going to win this, he said. But Elena didn't feel victorious. She felt hunted. They stepped out into the private garage, the hum of the S-Class echoing off concrete walls. Marco led her into the elevator, swiping a black keycard that opened directly into his penthouse, sleek floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Manhattan skyline. Normally, the view was breathtaking. Tonight, it felt like a spotlight. Elena sat slowly on the leather sofa, the exhaustion settling deep in her bones. Marco paced back and forth, a storm in a tailored coat. Julian's right, he muttered. We can bury Sierra legally, but I'm telling you, she won't stop. People like her never do. Julian loosened his tie. She's losing control. The more desperate she gets, the sloppier she becomes. That's good for us. Marco shot him a look. You think this is good? She targeted Elena's baby. And Isabel. Julian held up his hands. I'm not saying it's acceptable. I'm saying it's leverage. Elena pressed a hand to her stomach. The baby kicked soft, fluttery, reminding her she wasn't alone, even now. Then her phone buzzed again. She hesitated before unlocking it. This time, it wasn't Sierra. It was Adrian. A text message. We need to talk. It's urgent. Her stomach dropped. Marco leaned over, reading the message from behind her. No, he snapped. Absolutely not. You're not meeting him. It's Tueva. Elena bit her lip. Marco, he's still the baby's father. Marco scoffed. Barely. Julian stepped forward, thoughtful. What does he want to talk about? Before Elena could respond, another text came in. Sierra's lying about everything. I didn't know. Please just hear me out. Elena stared at the screen, shocked. Julian frowned. He's panicking. Sierra must be turning on him to save herself. Marco shook his head. Or he's helping her trap Elena again. Elena exhaled shakily. I don't know who to believe anymore. Marco crouched in front of her, his voice softer now. Believe me, Adrian will say whatever he needs to save himself. Don't fall for it. Before Elena answered, Julian's phone lit up. An alert. He read it and paled. What is it? Elena asked. Julian slowly turned the screen toward them. A news headline blazed across it. Federal investigators issue warrant for Sierra Vale's financial records. Elena's breath caught. They're coming after her? Not just her, Julian said grimly. Look at the subheadline. Marco snatched the phone. His face darkened. Authorizing review of all associated partners, digital correspondences, and financial ties, including former spouses and business collaborators. Elena's pulse stopped. That means, Marco nodded, expression lethal. They're coming after Adrian too. Julian added quietly, and if Adrian panics, he might drag you down with him. Elena's world spun. Sierra was cornered. Adrian was desperate. And Elena Hartman was suddenly the most dangerous person in their lives. Elena barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, Adrian's texts flashed behind her eyelids, urgency, desperation, a tone completely unlike the man who had humiliated her at the bar. She tried to ignore it, to focus on the investigators closing in on Sierra, on Julian's offer, on Marco's warning, but the messages gnawed at her. By morning, there were 9 missed calls. When Marco stepped into the kitchen, Elena held the phone out to him with shaky fingers. "He won't stop," she whispered. Marco glanced at the screen and scoffed. "He's terrified. Good, let him sweat." But Elena shook her head. "Marco," he said, "he didn't know what Sierra did. He said she lied to him too." "What if—" Marco cut her off sharply. Don't give him an inch. He doesn't get redemption just because he's scared now." Elena looked down. "He's still the father of my baby. Is everyone. There's force, everyone." That sentence landed like a stone. Marco's jaw flexed, but he didn't argue, not this time. Before either of them could speak again, the doorbell chimed. They stared at each other. Once, twice, a third time, insistent. Marco moved first, checking the surveillance screen, and he swore under his breath. "It's him, Adrian." Standing in the hallway outside Marco's penthouse, disheveled, pale, eyes red-rimmed like he hadn't slept for days. "Elena," Marco said, voice low, "go to the bedroom. Let me deal with this." But she shook her head. "No, I need to hear what he has to say." Marco hesitated, then reluctantly unlocked the door, keeping himself between Elena and Adrian as he let the man inside. Adrian stepped in slowly, looking around the penthouse as if realizing for the first time how far out of his depth he was. His voice cracked as soon as he spoke. "Elena, please, I need to talk to you." She didn't say anything. Didn't move. He swallowed hard. "I know you have every reason to hate me. I know what I did at the bar was unforgivable." He dragged a hand through his hair. "But I swear I didn't know what Sierra was doing. I didn't know she was lying to me. I didn't know she was being investigated. She told me you were the problem. She told me you were cheating. She told me—" Marco snapped. "She told you because you're an idiot who believes the last person who strokes your ego." Adrian flinched but didn't fight back. For once, he looked defeated. "Elena," he continued, voice cracking, "when I found out the federal investigation had reopened, I confronted Sierra, and she exploded. She said if I didn't protect her, she'd drag me down with her. She said she had emails she faked that she could use to frame us both." Elena's breath hitched. "Frame us?" Adrian nodded. "I tried to back away. But she's dangerous. You don't know what she's capable of." Marco stepped forward, voice icy. "Oh, I know exactly what she's capable of." Adrian held up a trembling hand. "Look, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just need to warn you. Sierra isn't panicking anymore." Elena stiffened. "What do you mean?" Adrian's next words sent a chill straight through her bones. "She's planning something big. She said if the investigation touches her again, she's taking you down first." He swallowed. "She said she already has a plan to destroy your credibility permanently." Marco's fury simmered beneath the surface. Elena felt her knees weaken. Adrian looked at her with fear, not of Marco, not of the investigation, but of Sierra. "Elena," he whispered, "she said, your baby is her insurance policy." Silence fell like a hammer. And then Marco stepped forward, voice low and deadly. "Then it's time we make the first move." The room felt colder after Adrian left, like his confession had sucked all remaining warmth from the penthouse. Elena sat quietly on the sofa, one hand resting on her stomach, trying to calm the baby's fluttering kicks. Every instinct in her body screamed danger. Sierra wasn't just vindictive, she was calculating. And now Elena knew Sierra was capable of weaponizing anyone, even her own unborn child, if it meant protecting herself. Julian stood near the window, arms crossed, gaze fixed on the Manhattan skyline as if strategizing against the entire city. Marco paced like a caged storm, tension rolling off him in waves. Finally, Julian turned. "We need to act. Today." Marco scoffed. "Act how? With lawyers and polite letters? Sierra's not afraid of litigation. She's afraid of losing the narrative." Julian didn't flinch. "Exactly. Which is why we take it back." Elena looked up. "How?" Julian walked toward her slowly, choosing his words carefully. "Elena, you've been fighting alone for months. Running, hiding, trying to survive. And Sierra has used every moment of your silence to paint you as unstable, dramatic, and manipulative." Elena lowered her gaze, voice barely a whisper. "Because people believe the loudest voice. Then we get louder," Julian said simply. Marco stopped pacing. I'm listening, Julian continued. Tomorrow, Cross and Bellman is hosting a preview event for our spring line. Press, influencers, industry leaders, every major fashion outlet will be there. He paused. I want Elena to come as our guest designer. Elena's heart lurched. Julian, I don't have anything to show. I haven't designed in years. You have sketches, Julian said softly. Sketches with more heart and originality than half the designers working today. Marco folded his arms. You want to put her on display? Make her a target? Julian shook his head. No, I want to put her in the light. Sierra thrives in shadows, in lies, in manipulation, in whisper campaigns. The best way to crush someone like her is to present the opposite of what she sells to the world. He turned to Elena directly. You've been painted as weak, unstable, desperate. But tomorrow, they're going to see the truth. A resilient woman, a talented designer, and yes, a mother protecting her child. Elena inhaled shakily. I don't know if I'm strong enough. Marco knelt beside her again, his voice gentler than she'd heard in months. Elena, you survived a marriage that tried to erase you. You survived being left with nothing. You survived humiliation that would break most people. His eyes softened. You're stronger than anyone in that room tomorrow. Julian nodded. And we won't let Sierra near you. She won't expect you to stand tall. She expects you to hide. That's her weakness. Elena closed her eyes. For months, she had curled inward, trying to survive the storm. But maybe she didn't have to hide anymore. Maybe she could rise. When she opened her eyes, something steadier had settled inside her. Okay, she whispered. I'll do it. Julian smiled, relieved. Good. Marco stood, his voice shifting back to ice. While Elena prepares for the event, I'll deal with Adrian. If Sierra tries to use him, Julian cut in. Don't escalate. Marco didn't promise. He only said, I'll protect my sister. But before the moment could settle, Elena's phone buzzed again. A new message. From an unknown number. Her stomach dropped as she tapped it open. See you tomorrow, sweetheart. Wear something nice. S. Elena's blood ran cold. Sierra already knew, and she was planning to be there. The showdown was coming, and Sierra Vale wasn't coming to talk. Elena stared at the message from Sierra, her pulse hammering against her ribs. See you tomorrow, sweetheart. Those words wrapped around her like a cold hand, tightening, threatening. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. Marco snatched the phone from her grasp, his jaw clenching with every second he read. She wants you afraid. That's the only reason she's doing this. Julian approached slowly, keeping his tone calm. She's rattled. The investigation, the live stream backlash, the federal warrant, she's grasping at control. But Elena didn't feel reassured. Sierra wasn't just lashing out, she was targeting her. Personally, intentionally. Elena, Julian said, softening his voice, you don't have to go tomorrow. We can pull back. Delay the event. Marco nodded shockingly. We'll protect you, without putting you in front of cameras. For a moment, Elena wanted to say yes. To hide, to retreat, to curl into a safe corner of Marco's luxury penthouse and pretend the world outside didn't exist. But then she thought of her baby, of every cruel comment online, of Sierra calling her unfit, unstable, a gold digger, of Adrian standing there, silent, as she crumbled under humiliation in that Manhattan bar. She thought of all the moments she swallowed pain just to survive. No more. Elena straightened slowly, resting one hand on her belly. If I run now, she wins. Every lie she told becomes the truth. I'm done hiding. Marco looked at her for a long moment, dark eyes scanning her face, searching for doubt, but there was none left. He exhaled. Then we prepare. Julian nodded. I'll send my team to the penthouse tonight. We'll set up security, finalize the press list, and control every angle of tomorrow's event. Marco added, and no one gets near you. Not Sierra, not Adrian, not anyone. Elena swallowed hard. What do I wear? It was a small question, but in that moment, it carried everything. Her anxiety, her hope, the weight of reclaiming her narrative. Julian stepped closer. You're not wearing anything from the showroom. You're wearing your own design. I reckon. Elena blinked. My? What? Julian smiled softly. Marco sent me photos of your sketches last night. Elena, you have talent, real talent, There's a dress in your portfolio, a navy piece with hand-stitched detailing. We can recreate it overnight. My seamstresses are already on standby." Her breath caught, her design, on her. At a major fashion event, Marco's voice softened. "Let them see the woman you really are." The rest of the evening moved in a blur. Julian's team arrived with fabric samples, tablets, and measuring tools. His head seamstress, a warm woman named Claudia, measured Elena's belly gently and assured her they would make the design both stunning and comfortable. Meanwhile, Marco coordinated security, quiet but thorough. He spoke in low tones to his trusted team, men who operated legally but moved with the efficiency of people who knew how to protect powerful interests. "Elena doesn't take a single step without someone watching her back," he ordered. Hours passed. Elena watched her dress come alive, fabric draped, seams pinned, a silhouette forming that made her look like a woman reborn, a woman restored. For the first time in months, she stood in front of a mirror and saw something more than fear. She saw strength, she saw a future, she saw a mother. And yet, deep beneath the newfound courage, unease lingered. Sierra would be there tomorrow, waiting, planning, and Sierra Vale never showed up anywhere without an agenda. As Elena ran her hand over her rounded stomach, a shiver moved through her, quiet but unmistakable. Tomorrow would change everything, one way or another. Elena barely recognized herself in the mirror the next morning. The navy dress, her design, fit her perfectly. Elegant lines softened around her baby bump, highlighting it rather than hiding it. The fabric shimmered gently under the soft penthouse lights, making her look like she wasn't a woman who'd been torn apart, she was a woman who'd survived. Claudia's team added light makeup, soft waves to her hair, understated jewelry that didn't scream luxury but whispered confidence. For the first time in months, Elena saw the woman she had once dreamed of becoming. But beneath the transformation, unease crawled like a shadow. Marco entered the room, dressed in a dark suit, a silent force of power beside her. "You look strong," he said. "Do I look scared?" she asked softly. "A little," he admitted. "But strength isn't the absence of fear. It's walking forward anyway." Julian arrived minutes later, crisp and collected, holding his iPad and a folder of event notes. "Press will arrive at noon. You'll walk in with me. Marco will handle external security." Elena nodded, though her hands trembled. As they prepared to leave, a vibration buzzed through the penthouse Marco's phone. He glanced at the screen, eyebrows lifting sharply. "It's Adrian." Elena exhaled shakily. "What now?" Marco answered with the cold efficiency of someone who trusted no one. "What is it?" he snapped. Adrian's voice came through the speaker, breathless, anxious. "Marco, listen, Sierra's not going to the event alone." Julian tensed. "Who's with her?" There was a pause. "People," Adrian said. "People who'll do anything she asks. She's calling it crowd control. She wants a show, something dramatic." Elena's stomach tightened. "Adrian, is she planning to confront me?" Another pause. Then, quietly. "She wants to expose you. Publicly. She says she has proof you're unfit, and she's been rehearsing a speech. She won't say what she's holding, but she says it'll ruin you." Marco's voice sharpened. "She's bluffing." But Adrian's tone said otherwise. "She's not. She's too confident." End quote. Julian ran a hand through his hair. If she has fabricated evidence, fake documents, edited emails, it could sway the press. Even temporarily. Elena felt dizzy. "She's going to humiliate me again." Marco crouched in front of her, gripping her shoulders. "Not this time. You won't face her alone. Not for a second." But something else flickered in Adrian's voice, guilt. "Elena," he said hesitantly, "there's more." Marco's eyes narrowed. "Spit it out." "Well, for safe. Sierra's going to claim the baby isn't mine." Silence smothered the room. "She's going to say you cheated. She's going to bring up names, fake timelines, fake photos." Elena's breath trembled. "That's impossible." She can't." "She can," Adrian whispered, "and she will." Julian exhaled sharply. This is her final play. If she can't silence the investigation, she'll shift the spotlight. She'll make Elena the scandal. Elena's hands shook. "I can't let her do this. I can't let my baby grow up with this story hanging over her." Marco stood, eyes dark as storm clouds. "Then today isn't about fashion." He looked at both of them. "It's about truth." About taking back everything she stole. Julian nodded. We'll control the room. We'll control the timing. And when she tries to expose you, he tapped his tablet, we'll expose her. Elena took a deep breath, feeling the fabric of her dress tighten around her ribs. This wasn't just an event. It was a battleground. And Sierra was coming armed. But this time, so was Elena. The event space at Cross and Bellman glowed with soft white lighting, glass walls overlooking Fifth Avenue, and a polished runway slicing through the center like a silver ribbon. It was elegant, modern, impossibly glamorous, the exact opposite of the life Elena had been fighting to survive. Guests filtered in. Fashion editors, influencers, industry leaders. Conversations buzzed like electric currents. Cameras flashed. And beneath it all, a current of tension simmered, because everyone knew drama was in the air. Sierra's live stream was still trending. The press smelled blood. Elena stood backstage, fingers trembling as she smoothed a hand over her dress. Claudia made final adjustments while Julian hovered nearby, reviewing the program on his iPad. Marco stood at the exit door, arms folded, eyes scanning every face. Elena, Julian said gently, you don't need to speak unless you want to. Your presence alone tells the truth. But Elena wasn't sure presence was enough. Fear twisted deep inside her, not for herself, but for her child. The baby kicked softly, as if sensing her mother's anxiety. Marco stepped closer. Remember, Sierra thrives on chaos. Stay calm. She can't win if you don't let her control the moment. Elena nodded, though her stomach churned. Then, suddenly, the room shifted. A ripple of whispers swept through the crowd. Phones lifted. Heads turned. Sierra Vale had arrived. She walked in like she owned the air, draped in a white gown, hair perfectly styled, smile polished to icy perfection. But something was off. Beneath the confidence was pressure, sharp edges in her eyes, tension in her jaw. And behind her came a small entourage, photographers she'd hired, vloggers chasing clout, a PR assistant frantically updating a social feed. Of course she brought a circus, Marco muttered. Julian checked his watch. Let her. The more she talks, the deeper she digs herself. Elena's heart pounded. She wasn't ready to face Sierra, not after everything she'd done, everything she'd taken, everything she'd nearly destroyed. But today wasn't about fear. It was about reclaiming her life. Julian squeezed her shoulder. It's time. They stepped onto the runway entrance platform, waiting for the lights to signal. The audience quieted as Julian approached the microphone. Welcome to the Cross and Bellman Spring Preview, he began. Today's show features a special collaboration created by a designer whose work captures resilience, honesty, and heart. Guests leaned forward. Julian continued, Please welcome Elena Hartman. A hush fell. Elena stepped forward. For a heartbeat, the silence was suffocating, every camera pointed at her, every whisper magnified, every insecurity clawing at her chest. But then, applause. Soft at first, then growing, genuine, warm. Elena almost broke into tears. But the moment shattered when Sierra's voice sliced through the room. Isn't this precious? Sierra called out, stepping onto the runway uninvited. Cameras pivoted instantly. A charity case, pretending to be a designer. Gasps. Phones lifted. Marco tensed. Julian stepped forward. Miss Vale, you are not part of this program. Please leave the stage. But Sierra smirked. Oh, I have every right to be here, especially since this woman, she pointed a manicured finger at Elena, has been lying to everyone. Elena's heart lurched. Sierra raised her phone dramatically. I have proof. Proof she manipulated my boyfriend. Proof she trapped him. Proof she... But before she could finish, a booming voice cut through the chaos. No, Sierra. We have proof. And it's time the world sees it. Marco stepped forward, holding a tablet. Sierra's confident smile faltered. The room inhaled collectively. Elena, Marco said softly, it's time. And with a tap on the screen, the truth began to play. The room went silent, the kind of silence that drops like a stone, pulling every heartbeat down with it. All eyes locked on the tablet in Marco's hand. Sierra's smug confidence wavered, her lips parting just slightly, like she wasn't sure whether to smile or run. Marco tapped the screen. The speakers, Cross and Bellman's high-end surround system, kicked in instantly. A video began to play. Not grainy clips, not rumors. Crystal clear security footage. The first shot, Sierra Vale in a dimly lit office, rifling through documents. The timestamp aligned perfectly with the period she'd been under fraud investigation. Her fake charity logo, identical to the one the federal agents flagged, glowed on the screen behind her. Gasps swept the room. The second clip. Audio recordings. Sierra meeting with a man in a parking garage, discussing moving donations around before anyone notices. Her voice was unmistakable, confident, calculated. Cameras flashed wildly. Whispers erupted like wildfire. Sierra's voice cracked. You fabricated this. This is illegal." Julian stepped forward, voice measured and lethal. "These files were provided by one of your former collaborators, someone who came forward after the federal warrant was issued. We verified the metadata. The recordings are real." A journalist shouted, "Is this tied to the fraud case being reopened?" Julian didn't need to answer. His silence said everything. Sierra's panic sharpened. "This is all because of her," she screamed, pointing at Elena. "She's trying to frame me because she can't take responsibility for her own mess of a life." The crowd recoiled at the desperation in her tone. Then Marco tapped again. A new clip filled the screen. Adrian's apartment. A private conversation Sierra never expected anyone to hear. Sierra's voice, cold and venomous. "Relax. If the feds come, I'll pin everything on Elena. She's already broke, emotional, unstable. People will believe it. And if Adrian's dumb enough to go down with me, well, he should have thought twice." The room stilled. Dead. Silent. Sierra went pale, visibly shaking. That was taken out of context. But no one believed her now. The illusion she'd spent years building cracked open under the weight of her own words. Marco stepped aside, letting Elena step forward if she wished. Julian stayed close, just in case. The reporters swarmed at once. "Elena, did you know Sierra planned to frame you? Are you pressing charges? How long has this harassment been going on? Is your pregnancy connected to the case?" Elena inhaled shakily but steadier than she expected. She lifted her chin. "I didn't want any of this," she began, voice trembling but clear. "I wanted a quiet life. I wanted to build a family. I wanted peace." She placed a protective hand over her stomach. "But Sierra tried to destroy everything. My marriage, my name, my safety, and my baby's future." Camera flashes exploded around her. "And I'm done being silent." A wave of applause swelled, unexpected, powerful, real. Sierra's expression warped rage, fear, humiliation, bleeding together. "You think this is over?" Sierra hissed. "You think—" She was cut off by a new voice. Firm. Authoritative. "Miss Vale." Two federal agents stepped forward from the crowd, badges out. "We need you to come with us." Sierra froze. No, this is a setup. I'm being targeted." Adrian, help me." But Adrian, standing near the back, didn't move. Not a step. The agents took her by the arms. Flashes intensified. Sierra's screams echoed through the elegant hall. And just like that, the villain who tried to destroy her was finally exposed under the same spotlight she craved. The moment Sierra was escorted out, the entire event space shifted. The air felt lighter, electrified, almost like the collective exhale of a crowd that had just witnessed justice happen in real time. Reporters rushed forward, editors whispered excitedly into phones, and influencers scrambled to post their reactions online. But Elena didn't move. She stood frozen on the runway, her hands still resting over her belly, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear the applause. She wasn't used to attention that didn't cut, didn't mock, didn't bruise. It felt unreal, like she was watching someone else's victory. Julian stepped to her side. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. She nodded, though tears brimmed dangerously in her eyes. I think so. They get no." 27. It's Gamino. Marco approached next, his expression a mixture of protectiveness and something warm, something proud. Elena had seen him fight battles she didn't understand, in worlds she never wanted to enter. But she had never seen him look at her the way he did now. "You did it," he said quietly. "Not me, not Julian. You." Elena's lips trembled. "I didn't feel brave." "Bravery isn't about feeling it," Marco replied. "It's about showing up anyway." -2. Before she could answer, applause rose again, louder, stronger. The room stood. Even journalists clapped. Some had tears in their eyes. Elena realized they weren't applauding the scandal or the drama, they were applauding her resilience, her truth. A staff coordinator stepped forward and whispered to Julian. The board wants to offer her a full contract. They said to tell her immediately. Julian smiled. Elena, there's something else. She blinked. What now? You're going to get an official offer tomorrow. Full designer position, salary, benefits, creative freedom, the works. She inhaled sharply, unable to speak. Her dream, the one she'd abandoned when life turned cruel, was being handed back to her. But the moment wasn't finished. From across the room, Adrian approached slowly, hesitantly. He looked smaller than before, not physically, but emotionally. The man who once strutted through bars like he owned the world now looked like he was trying not to break apart in front of strangers. Marco stiffened immediately. Careful, he warned. But Adrian raised both hands. I'm not here to make excuses. Elena faced him, spine straightening. No fear this time, no shame, just truth. Adrian swallowed hard. I saw what she did, what she planned, and I just want to say I'm sorry. Not because I'm scared anymore, but because I finally saw what I became when I believed her. His voice cracked. You didn't deserve any of it, Elena. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her silence said everything. Adrian nodded, accepting the weight of it, and stepped back. It was the closest he'd ever get to forgiveness. Julian turned to Elena once more. Are you ready for what comes next? She looked around the applause, the cameras, the shattered remains of Sierra's lies scattered like dust, the future unfolding right in front of her. For the first time in a long time, she smiled. I think I am. Marco placed a protective hand on her back. Then let's go home. You need rest. But before they left, Julian handed her something. A sleek envelope embossed with her initials. This is just the beginning, he said. Elena held the envelope close to her heart. Her life, all of it, was being rebuilt piece by piece. But tomorrow would bring the final chapter. And one last reckoning still waited. The next morning arrived quietly, no flashing cameras, no shouts, no chaos. Just a soft winter sunrise over Manhattan, pale gold light spilling through Marco's penthouse windows. Elena stood in the kitchen, wrapped in a warm robe, hands cupped around a steaming mug of tea. For the first time in months, her breathing felt steady. Her mind wasn't racing, her heart wasn't trembling. Peace. Real, gentle peace. Marco emerged from his home office, hair tousled, eyes heavy from a night spent on the phone with attorneys and investigators. But when he saw Elena standing there calm, glowing, safe, his expression softened. How's the little one? He asked. She smiled, kicking like she's training for the Olympics. He smirked. Good. Strong is good. If we'd now. A knock sounded at the door. It wasn't frantic, not like Sierra's threats or Adrian's breakdowns. It was calm, respectful. Julian stepped inside, carrying a folder and a small gift bag. Good morning, he greeted, his tone warm but formal. I hope you got some rest. I did, Elena said. More than I've had in, well, years. Julian placed the folder on the counter. Your official contract. Full designer position. Flexible hours, health benefits, maternity support. And complete creative authority for one capsule collection. Elena's breath caught. Julian, this is... You deserve it, he said simply. Yesterday wasn't just about exposing Sierra. It was about giving you your future back. Marco folded his arms. And keeping her future far, far away. Julian nodded. She'll be facing charges for fraud, defamation, harassment, and evidence tampering. She won't be bothering you again. Elena let the words settle deep inside her. Sierra, gone. Her threats dismantled. Every cruel lie she had built turned to ash. The fear that once strangled Elena had finally loosened its grip. There was closure. Real closure. Julian then handed her the small gift bag. Inside was a tiny, delicate baby bracelet engraved with a single word. Brave. Elena pressed a hand over her mouth, tears warming her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. For what? Julian asked. You're the one who stood up there. You're the one who faced her. End quote. Marco nodded in agreement. We only gave you backup. You fought the war. Elena exhaled shakily. I wasn't fighting for revenge. I was fighting so my daughter could have a future where she isn't defined by someone else's lies. And she will, Marco said firmly. She has you. And she has me. Julian added, and a career you earned. For a moment, the three of them stood quietly connected by everything they'd overcome together. Then Elena straightened, wiping her tears. "There's something I need to do today." Marco raised a brow. "What's that?" She smiled softly. "Go home. Not to her old apartment. Not to the past. To a new home, one she could build with her own hands." Later that afternoon, Elena stepped into her new rental unit, a small but bright apartment in Midtown, courtesy of her new salary and a generous relocation stipend. Sunlight streamed across the hardwood floors. It wasn't large, but it was hers. Safe, warm. A place where her baby could take her first steps. She placed a tiny pair of newborn socks on the counter. Her heart swelled. This was her restart. Her new chapter. Her new life. She looked out at the skyline, strong, endless, full of possibility, and whispered, "We made it." And for the first time since everything fell apart, Elena Hartman truly believed it. Her story didn't end in pain. It ended in power, justice, and a future she finally deserved. So, that's the end of our story. And if you're still here, right now, at this very moment, then something in this journey must have touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength. Maybe it whispered that even in the darkest moments, you are more capable than you think. You know, the Stoics used to say, "The obstacle is the way." Meaning, sometimes what hurts us the most ends up shaping us the most. Elena didn't choose the pain, but she chose what to do with it. And that choice made all the difference. Her story reminds us that dignity, courage, and truth are things no one can take from you unless you hand them over. It also reminds us that healing doesn't always roar. Sometimes it begins with a whisper, "I deserve better." So if you're listening to this right now, maybe this is your sign. You've survived every hard day so far. You're still here. And that means you're stronger than you know. If this story meant something to you, even just a little, hit the like button, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe so we can keep walking through these stories together. You're not alone. We're here with you,